GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. We're the daily crypto show that's as rewarding as finding the remote right where you left it. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton, and today we are joined by Jesse Eckel, founder of Oath Pact Venture and fellow podcaster, fellow YouTuber. This guy's pumping out content on the regs and some of the best content, I believe, out there in the space. Today, we are talking about Jesse's predictions for 2025, and buckle up, everybody. He's got some bullish predictions that you guys are going to be pumped about, some great takes. Before we jump in and hear from Jesse, just need to take a moment to hear from our sponsors who make the show possible. Meanwhile is the world's first licensed and regulated life insurance company built for the Bitcoin economy. They do everything in BTC. You pay in BTC, they pay claims to your family in BTC. You take out policy loans entirely in BTC when you need liquidity. Protect your family from life's uncertainty and a broken financial system. Build intergenerational Bitcoin wealth while the cost of living skyrockets in dollar terms. Plus, get all the tax and legal benefits of life insurance now in Bitcoin. Visit milkroad.com/meanwhile to join the waitlist and get early access to the world's first Bitcoin life insurance. Jesse, welcome back to the Milk Road Show.
I'm glad to be back on the Milk Road Show.
Nice, man. I love it. Okay, I'm not going to waste any time jumping in. Let's start with your predictions for 2025, starting at the top with we're giving away the juice a little bit here at the top, but we're going to start with your Bitcoin market top prediction for 2025.
Yeah. So my Bitcoin price prediction is that I think we're going to see Bitcoin hit around 170,000 to 190,000 this cycle. So I actually feel like that's probably more of a conservative take.
That's quite conservative. Yeah.
I've heard 250,000. I've heard 500,000. But I think 170,000, 190,000 is where it's going to end up landing unless we have a blow off top. So if we see a blow off top like we saw in 2017, obviously it could go quite a bit higher. Maybe that's when we hit 250,000. But I think if it's more like the 2021 cycle, it's within that range.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing to know about a blow off top is and with all these predictions is if it does have that blow off top, it's such a short time period, right?
Yep.
Can you actually sell at that? Two things I always want to say to our listeners. One, don't make your sell decisions in your trade plan based upon a price target alone. Follow other indicators. Please listen to our show. That'll help you out. But also, whatever you think the market top is, don't plan to sell at that price because very few people catch that price. That's a difficult thing to do. Okay. So a little bit, I'm not going to say bearish. I mean, that's still bullish. That's obviously.
Oh, I'm super bullish on Bitcoin. And I think there's so many catalysts. You have the strategic reserve. You have just the idea of people even front running even if strategic reserve doesn't happen in the US, you're going to have countries that are going to try to front run that. You have the ETF flows, which year over year should continue to grow. So there's so many catalysts I think are really bullish for Bitcoin. That's mostly based on the fact that if you actually look all the way back to the start of Bitcoin, each cycle, man, I forget exactly how I did this, but I went through and tried to find any sort of pattern I could. And it's each cycle, the amount it goes up, I think it was it is cut in half. And so if you just used the consistent pattern, that's where it would stick at 170 to 190. So it was mostly based off of that. And man, those cycles have just held so tight and those patterns have been so consistent that I think as a default, that's a really healthy place to sit. But long term, I think Bitcoin's going to 1 million. I think long term, we're going to see it hit 1 million, no problem. I just think this cycle, it's so big. It's a multi-trillion-dollar asset. And the amount of capital you have to push in there to move it up to 250,000, 350,000 is a lot of capital. So again, we could have a blow off top and maybe that pushes it up. But barring the blow off top, I think that's a healthy 170, 190. That's a lot of money. That's more money than ever come into Bitcoin in any cycle ever coming into Bitcoin. So it's still very, very bullish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great point. Yeah, I think that what we see, and I want to talk about your thoughts on the strategic reserve and whether you think that happens. So I'll ask that in a second. But I think that what we see with Bitcoin is that it is just the simple long-term play. I'm at the point now where people are, and I'm sure you're the same, your friends and your family are reaching out and asking you about crypto, and that's only going to increase a lot over the next year. But basically, I keep it pretty simple now. And BlackRock just recommended 2% allocation of everybody's portfolio to Bitcoin. So I just say, look, I don't mean to simplify it this much, but I'm kind of like, Bitcoin's made it. I think for decades, it averages somewhere between 10 to 20% annual year over
Yep.
year growth, right? And I think that's a very conservative estimate. Who was it that predicted? Vanek predicted Bitcoin would do, I think, 16% a year, and it would hit 3 million by 2050 if it did 16% a year. So like, that's when you actually say those numbers, like, that's not anything crazy. But I do think that, like, for basically what I think you're saying is, you think Bitcoin dominance is going to come down, and
Yeah.
we're going more into altcoin season. So let's talk about that in a second. But before we go there, a strategic reserve. You think it happens? U.S. strategic reserve. Do you think that
Okay,
happens?
so I think I had this on my predict. Yes, I did. Okay, so yeah, I think the Bitcoin strategic reserve happens, and I'm actually more bullish on this than most people.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it
Most
happens in
people.
2025.
Okay, really? Wow. Yeah. Most.
Yeah.
I'm going to. It doesn't happen in 2025.
So the way I think
Why
it
do you think?
happens, I've listened to a lot of the Trump talks on it and the podcasts from everyone else, and I think people got to they like are thinking of it in a weird way, and it's not how he said it. Um, they're thinking of it how RFK and Cynthia Lummis is saying it, which is like the U.S. buying Bitcoin. All that Trump wants to do is move the Bitcoin we already own, not sell it, put it into, like, basically change it from this ledger to that ledger, and now it's our strategic Bitcoin reserve. And that's just like super easy. Like, boom, let's move it over, done. Now, the idea of like the government buying Bitcoin, that's a lot bigger of a hurdle. I don't know that that'll happen in 2025, but I don't think it matters. If they move it to their balance sheet and it's like, this is our strategic Bitcoin reserve, every other country now has to think of a strategic Bitcoin reserve type play. And they're going to start buying it in anticipation that we'll buy it, and it kind of becomes this arms race. And so that's more how I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a big difference between them officially saying they're not going to sell the 200,000 Bitcoin that they have versus what Cynthia Lummis said, which was, we're going to buy 200,000 Bitcoin a year for 5 years. Big difference. And you know, when you put it like that, I definitely don't think they're going to sell the 200K. I think the question is, will they officially announce, as you said, this shift from, hey, this Bitcoin we have is officially our strategic reserve? Because that would be, just that news would be a major catalyst, as you said, because all of a sudden every other country is like, holy fuck, America's doing this. We basically have to do this now.
Exactly. And I think it depends on, and I don't know the nuances of the political system to know if they can or how easy this is. It's probably pretty easy. I could probably just look it up on ChatGPT, and I probably should. But it depends on how hard it is. If Trump can just sign it and say, hey, don't sell it, it's Bitcoin strategic reserve. If it's pretty much that easy, then yeah, that's a done. Like, it'll probably get done within the first 100 days of the presidency if it's that easy. And again, if you listen to what he said at his Bitcoin talk, like a Bitcoin 2024, that's what he said. He did not say he'd buy Bitcoin. He said he would just move it over, and that's our Bitcoin strategic reserve. It was RFK that said he would be buying Bitcoin. He was really bullish on it. And it was Cynthia Lummis that proposed a bill to buy Bitcoin. I think those are two different things. You got to look at them different. I think he'll do the easiest move first that honors his what he said. Bitcoin strategic reserve. He said he would do that. I think he's going to follow up on that promise. But I think it's just moving it on the balance sheet. Really bullish. But that second part is more questionable.
It's a great point. Okay, let's go to altcoin season, and I want to go to your prediction for the biggest alt, ETH, if you even call ETH an alt anymore. Yeah, give us your prediction for ETH.
Okay, so my prediction for ETH is that we'll see ETH between $13,000 and $20,000 this cycle, and it's a pretty big range. That is based off of, again, crypto is really weirdly good at following patterns, much more so than any other asset class, or at least much more than I'm aware of any other asset class. And around this time, so late December, early January, ETH dominance or Bitcoin dominance falls off a cliff, and then we see ETH kind of take over the narrative of not the narrative, but the reins of the market. So it kind of dictates the strength of the market. So as ETH goes up, alts go up, that kind of thing. And during this time frame, you see like the ETH to Bitcoin ratio hit within this certain range, right? So last cycle, I don't remember the exact one it was, but like if you look at 2017 and 2021, those are the two numbers. So if it hits 2017 ETH dominance, it's around $20,000. If it's 2021 dominance, it's around $13,000. So I think, that makes sense, especially if you look. A lot of people are overcomplicating this, and I think they got like current bias of what's currently happening. And a lot of the stuff they've been watching all bear market, they just forget. They forget that this happens every single time. ETH always has this epic comeback. And if you look at the ETF flows, there's been a couple days where ETH flows have done better than Bitcoin. And if you told me that was even going to, I would have thought that was impossible, not impossible, but like very unlikely, even 8 months ago. So with that happening, it just kind of shows me that people are going to do what you expect them to do, which is when Bitcoin hits a certain price point, there's just a subset of investors that are like, ooh, Bitcoin seems pretty high and therefore kind of risky. But what about this ETH thing? We have access to this via the ETF. Maybe that'll go up next. And so they're going to allocate into ETH as kind of a beta play to Bitcoin because it hasn't gone up as much. And because ETH is so much smaller, it just takes a smaller amount of capital to move in. If it's getting this bigger flows than Bitcoin, even on small timeframes, that's just going to move it up a lot. And so I don't think it surpasses Bitcoin or anything like that, but I do think it could hit the 2017 or the 2021 ratio, which gives it a price of around 13,000 to 20,000.
Yeah, it's a great take. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. The ETH ETF absolutely ripping right now, which feels so good because it was struggled so much throughout the year since its launch in the summer. Okay, let's go to your next prediction is one that I really like, and I really want everyone to listen to this one. Go for it.
So I think we're going to see a major dip in January of 2025. And that, again, comes to the fact that isn't even in the bull run cycle of the cycle. Like last year, like in general, January, we see this dip. I think it maybe has something to do with taxes or whatever, but there's typically a major dip. But if you look at like back at 2017, 2021, both had dips in January of the bull run year. Both those dips were about exactly 30%. And
for Bitcoin,
but they also, in Bitcoin. So alts could be a little different. But the interesting thing is, right before those dips. So if you look at the second half of December in the year before the cycles, we see like Bitcoin go parabolic in the second half. So typically in 2017, it like massively ran up, right? And in 2021, it massively ran up, and then it dipped in January. And the interesting thing is, so in the 2021, when it dipped in January, or in 2017, when it dipped in January, it dipped about down to where it would be right now. So it dipped kind of where it started, it went all the way up, and then it kind of round tripped. In 2021, it went way up, and it only went down a little bit. It never came back down to where it started. So it's kind of hard to tell. It's not like it's going to be such a major dip that you're going to be able to get in at cheaper prices than today. It's according to what we've seen in the past, it's either about the same prices or maybe a lot higher. And then typically after that, Bitcoin then goes even like radically more nuts after that dip, and it just is off to the races at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I love that because I also think a pullback is coming, and I think 20 to 30% Bitcoin pullback is very, very reasonable, and also not out of pattern at all. Very typical. And the important thing to know there is a few important things to know. One is if Bitcoin goes back 20 to 30%, you better believe that altcoins are going back even more, and meme coins are pulling back even more. So be ready for a lot of volatility. And the second is that is not when you fucking sell, everybody. That is not when you sell. I mean, like, I don't want to do your own research and make your own decisions, everybody, but those are the moments when like human psychology really comes in and everybody's like, oh, this is it. It's over. I'm out. And you sell on the low. And like, if you have conviction, as Jesse and I do, and a lot of people in the space do, that 2025 is going to be a big year. That is actually when, if you had some extra capital, you might look to buy at that point.
You don't even need a ton of conviction because the reason it crashes at the end of a bull cycle has to do with like all the leverage and unhealthy state of the market. And so it's like a Jenga tower that you've removed all the Jenga pieces and you've made it really big because you removed those pieces, but it makes it really unstable. But we're not like that right now. We just had a big liquidation last week. We're sitting healthy. We're very healthy at this point. And so when you see that pullback, the reason it's so bullish is because everyone sitting on the sidelines right now is like watching this price. And especially if you see it run up in December, they're just like, they're sweating because they're like, oh my gosh, I need to be in this. I need to be in this. Like, oh, I screwed up. I should have bought. So when they see that pullback, they think, now's my chance. And they jump in there. That dip gets eaten like crazy. And that's what skyrockets it after. So it's actually an integral part of like kickstarting the bull run is that crazy 30% dip.
Yeah, let me just pause on the going through the list for a second. You overall step back 2025 year ahead. You think we're in for a big year. You think this is going to be
big year. Yeah.
Yeah.
This could be the year, man. This could be our .com bubble kind of year. This could be the year to end all years. It's possible. I mean, if you wanted a more perfect setup, I couldn't like write you one. That's why it's so bullish. It's just like the most ultimate. Like if you had like a superpowers to craft, like I'm going to like write the most perfect bullish setup of all time. You could not write like tell me one thing you could add that could make it more bullish than what currently exists. Because I actually can't think of anything. It's that bullish. It's literally perfection. So yeah, it's 25. If there was ever a year for an epic bull run, it's next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. The setup is truly insane from all sides, from the macro side, from the developer side, from just the where we are within this cycle, where we are and according to patterns. Like it's all looking so good. Okay, you think ETH gets to 13 to 20,000 by the end of the cycle? What do you think happens with ETH end of December, early January?
So that's I mentioned a little bit earlier, but that's when it kicks into high gear typically. So that's when ETH takes the reins of the market and kind of takes over the narrative. Again, it doesn't even necessarily have to outperform Bitcoin. It just dictates the market. Like before this, Bitcoin is the price action dictates the market. After that point, ETH's price action dictates the market, and that has to do with ETH just being plugged in more places. Even if you go on Solana, like you buy ETH on Solana, all these L2s are chock full of ETH. Everyone's treasury is chock full of ETH. A ton of asset pairs, ETH. So ETH is just everywhere. It's like the currency of crypto currently at this point. And so when it goes up, there's just a massive wealth effect that's created where a ton of people just have a lot more money. That allows a lot more leverage to enter the system. So it's just so good. If you're like the ultimate Solana maxi and you're like, I love Solana, but like your entire life savings in Solana, you should be on your knees praying for ETH to go up. Because if ETH goes higher, now your like narrative is like, we're going to be the next ETH. And now ETH's at $5 trillion. So we're going to 5 trillion. Like that is the closer you get to ETH's price right now, the slower Solana will go. The higher ETH goes, the more room you have to run. So like ETH is going up is good for everything, literally everything. So that's really, really bullish for all of crypto.
That's a great take, man. That's a great take. Okay, so ETH rips end of December into January. Then what happens in February?
Then it's alt season. Then it's okay. Well, it depends how you define alt season because alt's been doing really good already. So it's definitional, but like the way I define it, you could definitely define right now as like I kind of think of it as pre-alt season, pre-positioning, because like I think alt season is like the mania. Like when alts are it, like that's what's hot. That's where you want to be. Like you are just popping off. But obviously February is like you kind of wish you were in alts before February, not after. But February is when alts just like start skyrocketing. And again, really simple principle of Bitcoin goes up. People are like, oh no, I missed out on that. What's next? And so then they're looking at ETH and XRP and like anything that kind of think is like gonna go up next if Bitcoin goes up. And then those things go up, specifically ETH. And then they're like, oh, I missed out on that. And then that's when like it just like it's so the possible rotations of like beta are so wide that it just like starts hitting the whole stack. And that's when alts start popping off. Because if you miss out, you're going to always look for the next opportunity, always. And alts are it. And the crazy thing about alts is like Bitcoin to ETH, they're both so big that when like it's not like ETH's going to skyrocket 100x. It's like doing a 2 or 3x. A lot of wealth's created, but it's not like as big of headlines. But the lower you go down the stack, it's like a 30. Somebody made a 30x on this one, and then they made a 300x on this one, and then somebody made a 3000x on this one. So the headlines get bigger, the like potential for wealth gets bigger, and it just starts pulling everyone in. So I think that kicks off in February. We're gonna have a full on alt season. All these people who've been like utility coins are dead. It's meme super cycle. They were consensus. They were the average, and a lot of them aren't positioned for this. And it's going to be pretty rough for them when this starts kicking off. Although I do think memes will probably do pretty well later in the cycle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's go to crypto AI. You got a very bold prediction for crypto AI. Give us that.
Yeah, I don't even feel like it's that bold. I feel like this one's pretty much obvious in that we're going to see at least one crypto AI project cross $100 billion in market cap. At least one is going to cross 100 billion. Last cycle is like BNB hit over 100 billion. Not very many. It was like you were super special if you made it past 100 billion last cycle. But if you look at the cycle before that, is like you were super special if you made it past 50 billion, right? It's like ETH sitting over 100 billion was like what was normal. So there's this watermark effect. So the higher Bitcoin and the higher ETH go, it's like the imagination of everyone gets bigger. And so now everything else can go higher because they're like, oh, Bitcoin's at $5 trillion now, and ETH it was, let's say, like 3 trillion in the middle of the bull, and they're like, well, now Solana could go to 2 trillion, and now that means maybe Arbitrum could go to 800 billion, and it's just like everyone's mindset kind of pumps up. And I think AI is the most consensus bet of like when your mom, your grandma, your cousin shows up, like, I don't know if they're going to buy like layer 2 stuff or like, restaking stuff. Maybe they'll throw it in there. They're not going to really know what that is, but they definitely will know what AI is. And they'll want to just plow a ton of money in there, even if it's stupid, because they haven't had any way to invest in AI. They know AI is super hyped. They know it's the future. And they're like, oh, I can invest in NVIDIA for like $3 trillion in market cap. Like, what am I going to make on that? So they don't really have a way to play it. And then there's like these tiny cryptos sitting at $100 million. They're like, oh my gosh, like my life savings going this thing. And so I think you're just going to have some of these things just pump uncontrollably because they're so consensus. And you're going to see at least one hit over $100 million market cap, $100 billion market cap.
Yeah, it would be. I don't disagree. I think that 2025 is the year of crypto AI. I think it will be the biggest. I think 2024 was the year of meme coins. I think that's what 2025 is going to be. The challenge that I have as an investor is like where to allocate within crypto AI, right? Like how do you pick which one is going to be like, let's say you're right, one gets to 100 billion. Yeah, but is it near and you're going more like the blockchain that's supporting crypto AI? Is it an AI agent? Is it a meme coin that's endorsed by an AI agent? I don't know if you've got thoughts on that.
So the way you do it would be you'd look at, okay, you don't know which one's going to pass 100. Maybe it's Tau, maybe it's near, maybe like who knows what it is. One of it passed 100 billion. Well, when one AI crypto passes 100 billion, what will people do? They're going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh, but what's going to be the next Tau? What's going to be the next near? And so they're going to look at all the things that are also AI related that could also pass 100 billion. And so if you position, like say you position among like pretty good ones, right? Like maybe 5 or 10 pretty good ones. And say you put like, you shouldn't actually position like this, but like as a thought experiment, you put 1,000 into each and you did 10 of them, right? If one of those does a 50x, all the other 9 could go to 0. And you turn your $10,000 into 50,000. So it's like, you can make beta plays off of that and win without knowing which one's going to hit 100 billion. Think of that as more like a big bat signal to like for that whole sector to just rally way higher.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, I love that. Let's look at your next prediction. I'm reading it on my screen here. I feel like we already talked about this prediction, or maybe you have some more insights to give this one's
it's just
general.
Full on mania mode in 2025. Crypto is insane bullish. Retail comes back. Prices are skyrocketing to higher levels than most anticipate. I think that the big things that maybe we haven't hit on is retail coming back. That we're already seeing that on my back end on my YouTube channel. It's like everything's like the green arrows. The green arrows are all pointing up. And it's if I look back at last year when we were kind of in a little mania mode in February, it's like significantly higher. Like retail is back. They're hitting hard, and they're going to continue to drip in. The more this stuff starts popping off. The other thing is prices skyrocketing higher than people anticipate. We kind of hit that with the watermarks, but this happens every cycle. Is that prices will get unreasonable. And you're going to try to logically be like, okay, this thing should like reasonably do a 10x, and there's going to do a 1,000x or a 10,000x. And you're going to like have sold at like an 8x, and you're going to be like, no, like it doesn't compute in my brain or whatever. The odds of you like paper handing like some insane run up are like pretty high. And at least for me, like I'm willing to let my brain kind of some logic go on certain things, just knowing that, hey, like it's okay if it disconnects from reality, because that's what happens in a bull run. Things get frothy, things go way too high, way higher than you expect. And you kind of have to just hold on for the ride and be okay with that.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing as an investor, is because I fully agree with you. And I think everybody listening, if you've never been in a cycle before, expect exactly what Jesse is saying. Things will not make any fucking sense. Like if you come from the TradFi world and maybe you understand how to do like valuations of stocks and valuations of equities, you cannot value any of this stuff, right? Like it makes no sense. The fundamentals go completely out the window, right? But here's the problem: is at the same time, everybody becomes obsessed with that, and the euphoria kind of takes over, and we're already seeing it. Like I saw somebody predict 2 million Bitcoin in 2025 recently. And I was like, what are you doing? And everybody goes insane. And it's like, I almost want to make a YouTube video that says 2 million Bitcoin, because I know I'd get more views than I get on my, current 200K, 240K target. Like it's not enough for people. Yep. But the problem is, so like, how do you balance that? How do you balance because I'm sure you agree with me on this one. I'm curious, actually. One of my biggest predictions and my biggest fears is that people will not take profits. Too many people will round trip. So I get really worried about that. So how do you balance it?
For sure, most people want to take profits and they're going to round trip. I don't think you're going to stop that. People get too greedy. I mean, if you have control of your greed, you'll make money. If you don't have control of your greed, you're going to lose money. And so at the end of the day, you can blame yourself for being too greedy. That's why you lost money. If you go around trying to point fingers at, everyone and their mom, you're just not going to learn your lesson. You're going to do the same thing next cycle, the next cycle after that, next cycle after that. They're going to go higher than you expect. And really the thing I don't know, you can't lose taking profits for sure, but you have to know yourself and have strong discipline, because what'll happen, and I've seen this happen so many times, is you'll be the smart guy at the start of the cycle where you'll take your profits on the 8x, and you actually thought you were being risky doing that, to be honest. You'll take your profits and then you'll watch that thing 1,000x. You'll start counting the amount of millions you could have had, and then it's like you lost that amount of money even though you didn't. And so then you'll try to make it back by doing even more risky things later in the cycle, and then you lose a fortune. And I've seen people do this over and over again. So that's kind of the hard part of selling too early. You can't lose taking profits, but you have to know yourself and be okay with, hey, I might be selling this thing 1,000x. I'm okay with that, because you know what? I'm going to keep taking profits every cycle, and maybe over 2 cycles, I'll hit a ton of money. Because it depends on your plan, but you got to have a strategy. If you don't have a plan going into this, you will get wrecked, because the emotional roller coaster of the cycle will take you in the direction most people go, and most people lose. That's how it goes. If you want to, average people don't make billions of dollars investing in crypto. Only the outliers do. Only the people on the fringes who think differently end up actually making a fortune.
Yeah, that's a great point. My other best advice is, do not take your profits all at once. Right? Like DCA in and DCA out. Or maybe you don't DCA out, but just do some sort of, my favorite on this one is Zeneca, and he comes on the show every few weeks and he always says the same thing. He just says, he's like, when you take profits, if you are afraid that you might miss out, and I'm talking like taking profits, I'm not talking taking profits on Bitcoin here. I'm talking taking profits on like a more of a bet that you made on a meme coin or on an L1, like a lot of the tokens that are going to drop 90%, and everybody listening in, a lot will drop 90% at the end of this cycle. Yep. So most. And I think you agree with me. Like, we're in cycles still. Like, this isn't the whole super cycle thing is not going to be a thing, guys. Like, we're not there yet. We're still controlled by liquidity, and we're still controlled by interest rates and all these things that are not there. They exist outside of crypto, but leave some in, right? Like, so maybe you take profits, leave 10% in, leave a moon bag in. And then that way, if it does go to the moon, at least you feel like you got a piece of it. Okay. Your next prediction gets a little bit technical, but I like this one, man. It kind of connects back to, we had Ryan Wyatt on the podcast from Optimism a few months ago, and he talked about this, but give it to us.
Okay, so by the end of 2025, we're going to more or less have solved interop between segments of chains, and soon after, just most of the space. And the reason this is so important is because the way you think of crypto will change by the next cycle. So you're not going to think of like all this chain tribalism. That's going to be gone. The idea of like even like building on this chain versus that chain will have nothing to do with tribalism or like users are here or whatever, because you'll be able to move seamlessly between chains as if they're all kind of one chain. So there's just so many solutions out there when you have like cross-chain intents with something like a cross. So that's like maybe a UX fix. But then on the back end, like tech-wise, you have like all these kind of cluster chains. Like Optimism is going to have their super chain. You have ZK Sync going to have their elastic chain. And so you're going to have those sort of things. You have shared sequencers, which are going to make it a little bit, each of them is like a piece of the puzzle. You have things like Polygon's ag layer, which is kind of like a neutral layer that actually could connect something like the OP super chain with the elastic chain. And actually, they don't even have to opt into it. They would have to, they can force them to connect to it. So there's all sorts of solutions coming to where, by next cycle, you're not going to be looking at chains as like these generalized chains, but more like specialized chains. And so the reason you'd build on a specific chain might be like, this is a privacy chain and you're building a privacy-based app, or you want your own app chain. that kind of thing. So it's just going to fundamentally kind of warp people's perspective, it's just coming way sooner than people think.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, let's go to your next few predictions here are more related to what narratives we could see pop off in 2025.
Yeah. So the first one is NFTs make a comeback later in 2025. And I am of the firm belief. This just one, again, also feels really obvious. And I think a lot of people, I don't understand people they do the same things every cycle and they're like shocked that like the same things happen every cycle. It's like you have like this like historical pattern of like these things always happen. And then they're like shocked when it happens again. They're like, I don't understand how that happened again. But it's the same song on repeat. But so NFTs are a late cycle phenomenon. They are when people are wealthy, they go buy NFTs. They're not going to spend $13 million on a ether rock. That's literally a picture of a rock when they're poor. But when they have so much money, they don't know what to do with it. They might, as a joke, spend $13 million on a NFT rock. And so when they have money, they bid up NFTs, and it's a luxury item like a Rolex, like a Lamborghini. It's a status symbol. And so it's like anything. When you see one collection really start popping up, we're in a mini NFT bull run right now, but this isn't the real one. When wealth's around and you start to see one collection do well, people are going to start bidding all the way down the stack. And you're going to see the same thing we saw last cycle. It might be a little different. Maybe Gary V's not jumping in it, but there's so much money in the space now that you could actually have a far bigger outcome for NFTs as a whole, because again, there's just way more liquidity this cycle.
Everybody that's listening is going to kill me if I don't ask you which NFTs you think are going to pop off, but I'm going to actually reframe the question slightly for you so you don't have to necessarily pick specific NFTs, because if anybody listened to you pick specific NFTs, they probably should do their own research anyways. But my main question is how to think, because I agree that NFTs are like cycle phenomenon and they will have their moment. I fully buy into that. The thing I struggle with is to think about like which NFTs, and not specifically which ones, but more so how to think about when NFTs pop off. Will it be there's so many ways so maybe you want to make the play of more like the picks and shovels, and you're more looking at like Magic Eden token because you believe that like NFTs pop off and Magic Eden will do well as a result of it. Maybe it's more like there's a few specific NFTs like CryptoPunks that feel like that almost feels like a given. Maybe apes, pudgy penguins, like, like the really like the Bluetooth, right? But where I struggle is like, what about all the NFTs that were created in the last cycle? Yeah. It's not like they're all going to go.
Yeah. So think of 2017 to 2021. So 2017, if you go on like this, like if you're around 2017, or you go back on CoinMarketCap and you look at like what was popular at the height of the 2017 market, you would not recognize, if you weren't around back then, 99% of the tokens there. There's a few you would recognize, but most of them you're not going to recognize. In the same way, I think you're going to see like if you were to go back on the charts on the height of 2021 NFT cycle, what you'll see next cycle is you're not going to recognize most of them, but you're going to recognize a few. So you're going to have things like probably apes, for sure, CryptoPunks, for sure, Pudgy. Like you're going to have some things that were like really big blue chips. They'll make a comeback. And then the long tail, like probably 99% of those NFTs from last cycle will not make a comeback. They'll be like the EOSs, the Aeons, the Neo, if anyone remembers that. They'll be like those type of things during the cycle. There's going to be new projects. There's going to be like new metas and new projects that emerge, just like we saw Uniswap, Aave, and all this kind of stuff pop off in 2021. Right now, I kind of think the meta, it's always a bar higher, right? So like 2017, it was, hey, if I have a cool name, I'm IOTA, and we're like not a blockchain, we're like way better than blockchain, whatever. I have a cool name and a white paper. You do really well. You delivered zero product. Nobody was doing anything on chain. You did well. 2021, people were actually doing things on chain. We actually were swapping on chain. We were delivering products. We had cash flow. We had revenue. Way different world. Okay, so the bar got raised. And you have to have that bar raised. So NFT is going to be the same thing. I think this cycle, what you're going to see is kind of this. I think of like Pudgies, where like Pudgy has like a business behind. It's like not related necessarily to NFT, but like there's like an actual company involved. They have physical toys. They have this meme coin token. They have these like games and a chain and all kinds of stuff. You look at Mad Lads on Solana. They have like an exchange. They have their own wallet. There's more to it than just an NFT collection. It's not like your average person could go do all those things. One of my favorites from this cycle is NFT collection. It's really small still, called Persona. They have a team. They're all ex-Ubisoft developers. They worked on games like Far Cry, games like The Division. They left that to build a crypto gaming studio. So they have a crypto gaming studio. They have an AI game coming out next year. And so they have like a pretty cool platform. So it's like this, again, the bar is raised. Your average person, like last cycle, there was like a 12-year-old that launched an NFT whale collection and made like millions or whatever. Your average 12-year-old couldn't do what Mad Lads and Pudgy and Persona is doing. So I think that's the new meta, is like the bar is going to be raised, and there's going to be like more of a quality check if you want to invest into something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned gaming. What do you think about gaming for 2025?
Okay, so one of my big, and like this is a high conviction belief, is that crypto gaming is a breakout hit in 2025. I think this is inevitable.
Me too, man. Let's go. I'm glad we're on the same page. Not many people are on this one with me. So,
no,
okay.
This is not consensus at all. If you talk to most people in crypto, they have like a full argument. Like they'll pull out a paper out of their pocket of like, this is why crypto gaming can never succeed. And like this is widely consensus is the exact opposite. I was at Art Basel or whatever, and I talked to so many people. I got laughed at actually on a shuttle because they just thought it was so stupid, the idea that crypto gaming would come back. And for me, I was like, oh my gosh, well, it is so early in crypto gaming because it's inevitable. For one, all the money and funding that came into crypto gaming attracted a lot of talent that just wasn't there in 2021. 2021, the games were like, what can we rush to market in 2 months? They sucked, whatever. That attracted a ton of money, a ton of capital, and they've been building for years. So you have a ton of crazy good games coming out. AAA teams have come, and they've left the traditional space to join because it's so easy to fundraise in crypto. You can raise $1 billion for a meme coin. You can also raise, a lot of money for a crypto game. So you have that element, just tons of really good games launching. But here's what I think, it doesn't even matter. Like, let's imagine that wasn't the case. There wasn't a ton of really quality games, like AAA quality games coming to market. Even without that, I think it would happen. And the reason is it's just like NFTs. People have way too much money late stage in the cycle, and then they start bidding on some of these gaming assets. So it's like, whatever it is, they're like, oh yeah, maybe this will go up. And so just like they're bidding on $13 million in Ether rocks, maybe some of these gaming assets are bidding up to 100,000, 200,000. There's some certain level that once these things become valuable enough, that's the like bat signal for all these like last cycle was people in the Philippines, but like these people, like users, to flood in and play the games because like now they can make $500 a week or a day playing this game. And because all these users flood into the game and they're playing it, and that's like the metric for everyone to be like, oh my gosh, these are actually valuable. So they bid the assets up higher, and the assets going higher brings in even more people. And then that bids the assets. It's like this reflexive loop. And so people just start storming these games. And when one game pops off, then everyone's like, well, what's going to be the next Axie Infinity? And so then the other games pop off. So it's like, it's human psychology. It's inevitable. It will happen when there's wealth to be distributed around. It's going to be, again, towards the later end of the cycle. But when it happens, it's going to be like a gold rush. And unlike AI, which is consensus and all those, pretty much all the gems have been bid up. There's so many on the ground, like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million crypto gaming market cap projects that will be bid up to the moon that people are just sitting on. I'm telling you right now, watch this video in a year from now. And like, oh my gosh, you'll be thinking people should listen to that guy because he was right.
Okay. I got to ask some specifics if there is any, like what trades you like in gaming. But before I do, one of the main reasons I think you're right, and I love that you've talked about patterns so much in this show, is do you remember Dookie Dash, the Yuga Labs game? And so Dookie Dash was like a shitty game. Like a very like basic mobile. I don't even remember if it was mobile or desktop, but it was not a great game. Like it was very basic, like Frogger or something like that. And remember that guy won the golden key and then sold it it was an NFT, and he sold it for $1 million at the peak of the last cycle. And so like there's the perfect example. And Dookie Dash was a gated game. You had to have like access. You had to have tokens, or there was some token access to it. It wasn't even an open game, right? So it's not even like everyone could play it. And that was one thing that happened in the last cycle related to gaming. I guess maybe you said more related to NFTs, but there's so much.
We want to know something insane right now. I was at a dinner with the founders of Big Time. So I like got invited to this dinner down in Florida, and the founders of Big Time were there. And I was just like talking to them. Big Time's like a game from last cycle. Most people don't even remember it.
I don't even know Big Time. What's Big Time?
It's like this game that was kind of big last cycle. They have a token and stuff like that. But they were telling me that over the course of 2024, in profit, they made, I might butcher this, but it's between $100 million and $150 million in profit. And this is like a no-name game that like nobody even talks about on crypto Twitter. Yeah. So that's according to them. That's according to the founder. So unless they were lying to my face, that's insane. And that's in the middle of the bear market. Okay. So these things are not only like they're profitable, they're making money. And honestly, in my head, it is one of the most obvious use cases of crypto. I actually think crypto gaming, here's another prediction, will onboard over time more users than any other thing in crypto, like combined. Like just the vast majority of users will get onboarded into crypto through crypto gaming. It's not how crypto gaming is not how people picture it. Whenever I have a conversation, they have like this outdated view of it. But yeah, I think crypto gaming will be massive.
Okay, so what's the trade?
Man, that's kind of hard. There's lots of trades, right? Like you could go, the blue chips right now would be like Immutable and Ronin, right? Ronin is actually still doing really good. They have more users than they had at the height of 2021. So at the height of 2021, it's like almost double actually the amount of active users. Again, there's so much happening behind the scenes people aren't aware of. So they and it's not from Axie, it's from Pixels, I think is their game that's just been really taken off.
Yeah. We had him, the founder of Pixels, on the podcast like a year or 2 years ago. He's real giga brain, incredible team. Really like what they're doing.
Yeah, and then I think Immutable's big breakout game's been Raven Quest. That's been doing really good. You have things like Gunzilla Off the Grid and Shrapnel and is it Shatterpoint? Like those are pretty good AAA shooters. So there's a lot of good games. As far as tokens, it's really hard to call which ones are going to be the biggest. I'm just focusing on like more like gems, like low quality. So or not low quality, low market cap gems. So right now, I'm invested in Una. So that's from Persona, the NFT collection. They have a token as well, Una. The Unagi's the gaming studio, and that's sitting at like $3 million in market cap. And so when it's so tiny, here's the thing: it's so tiny. If you actually believe we're going to see a crypto gaming just like mega run, and one crypto gaming project's going to 30 billion or 50 billion or 100 billion or whatever, like what are the odds that like this ex Ubisoft team, token that's sitting at 3 million market caps at least pumps to 30 million in a bull run? Like that just seems so obvious to me. Like 300 million also feels low. Like I remember there were stupid projects sitting at like 900. There's Ponzi's hitting like 4 billion last cycle. So like that just seems really low value. There's another one called SoulForge Fusion, SFG. It's on Solana. That one is kind of like Echelon Prime. It's kind of like Gods Unchained. So Gods Unchained hit at like 120 million market cap. Echelon Prime hit like almost $1 billion in the bear market. And those are just crypto card games. So like trading card games. They're meant to be like, hey, we're the digital version of Magic the Gathering. Well, the reason I like SoulForge Fusion is because it's created by the guy that made Magic the Gathering. So the original creator of Magic the Gathering got together with like one of the guys that did like the tournaments for Magic the Gathering. They built a game together called SoulForge Fusion. It actually was originally a physical card game. The ex-founder of Shapeshift like found it. He like became addicted. He loved it. And he said, hey, this make a great crypto game. He convinced the team to turn it into a crypto game. And that token is sitting at like $6 million, $7 million in market cap. It's got a high FDV. So you have to look into all that. I have looked into it. They're not releasing a ton of tokens. They're burning a ton of their supply. So but look into all that stuff. But anyway, I'm like, what are the odds that a 7 million X Magic the Gathering, not X, original Magic the Gathering founder turns into, the same market cap as Gods Unchained or maybe Echelon Prime. So it's like things like that where actually I think it being a lower market cap is makes it less risky in my opinion, because if you believe in a crypto gaming bull run, what are the odds? Again, Una goes from 3 million to 30 million or, whatever. So that's how I'm playing it. And then I'm like a mix of blue chips, mid chips, and smaller chips. There's so many opportunities. I couldn't name all the opportunities because it's not like AI. They haven't been bid up because it's not consensus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point. The other one, you mentioned Gunzilla, and their Guns token will release sometime in Q1, I believe.
Yeah.
And I really will be watching that one closely as well.
Same.
Jesse,
because that's not just for Gunzilla.
That's for
like
their whole studio.
Yeah,
their whole studio. Yeah, and Off the Grid's just their big game right now. But I think, and that studio, we did an episode with Piers Kicks from Delphi Ventures where we talked about, and he's a big investor in them. So go back and listen to that episode if you guys want to learn about Gunzilla and Off the Grid and what they're doing. And the team behind that studio is like, I think they raised like 500 million or something like that. Like they have raised so much money. It's a massive team.
The guy doing their story is the guy that made
Altered Carbon.
Alter Carmen, but what was the other movie? District 9.
Oh, District 9. Yes.
Yeah, he's a like Hollywood director, and he's like the head of their story and stuff. It's like a goated team, and it's a really quality game. So yeah, people they don't even understand like where the state of crypto gaming is insane right now, and they're like stuck in Axie Infinity like mode from 2021. They're gonna be shocked, utterly shocked, I think.
I love it. I love the conviction. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, let us know in the comments, which of these predictions do you agree with? Which do you not agree with? Which ones do you think are going to come true? What are you most excited for 2025? We got a whole bunch over the next few weeks. We got a whole bunch of episodes all about 2025 predictions. It's not just Jesse coming on the show. We got all of our favorite past guests, a bunch of experts coming on. And you know what the best part is? They all have different predictions, guys, because that's what we want you to hear. It's not a whole bunch of the same person saying the same thing. Everybody's got their own view, and you need to listen to them all in order to decide where you think you're going to make your decisions and where you have the most conviction in. Because as always, you should do your own research and make your own decisions. Thanks again for joining us, Jesse. Thanks for listening in, everybody. Have a wicked awesome day. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly what we are buying. This is your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this show is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening in, my friends. Have a wicked awesome day.